We're at 55. Oh, no, it just changed again. 56. Quick warm up today on our way to 73. Also, looks like we'll have a couple of days later in the week where we'll hit 80 before things, we'll have a rainy day on Saturday at times, but still very warm, and then cools off a little bit as things clear out on Sunday, but very much into spring-like weather now. And with summer-like weather coming, of course, you've got to keep in mind, if you have a lot of windows in your home or your business, that you are going to have a lot of heat convection coming in, and that AC unit will have to work overtime to keep things cool, and that'll use a lot of electricity. On the other hand, you can go with window tints, and you can cut down on all of that heat. You can also protect your paint, and those window tints will help protect many of your other valuables, portraits you may have on the walls, and the coloring of your furniture, carpet, and drapes. We've been recommending Tint Lady. In fact, Tint Lady has a new address at 127 Filer Avenue in Twin Falls. This is a company that's been in business, almost a quarter century now, locally owned and operated. You can get a free estimate. Call today, 736-8469, or go online, tintladyidaho.com, open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Saturday by appointment only, closed on Sundays, and remember, don't squint, get tint. Coming up on 9:45, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. A couple of weeks ago, a former Senator, Bob Graham from Florida, went on 60 Minutes and said he had been part of the committee in Congress that was investigating the 9/11 terrorist attacks. And there are 28 pages of the report that was issued that the American public has never been able to see. And he explained that that report suggested collusion between members, not officially maybe, but members of the Saudi royal family and the Saudi Arabian government in the 9/11 terrorist attacks on the United States. Most of the attackers were Saudi nationals. Remember, it is the greatest case of homicide in American history. Well, there is now pressure on the White House because some people are saying if these wealthy Saudis colluded in all of this, there is now pressure on the White House to actually have those 28 pages released so American families can turn around and actually get a settlement out of the Saudis. President Obama is under pressure. He's on his way to Saudi Arabia on a trip to try to smooth things over. First of all, we sell the Saudis a lot of equipment for their self-defense. I would hope that there's a kill switch in all of that. I mean, after all, if you're selling people who could potentially someday be your enemy, if you're selling these people weaponry and you go to war with them, you don't want them fighting back with us in a sense where they can use that equipment to kill Americans. So you would hope that somehow we have programmed into all of the weaponry we've given them or sold them a way to disarm it or disable it if we go to war. Because I'm telling you right now, if they were in cahoots with the 9/11 terrorists, that was an act of war, and it should have been settled at the time. We should have gone in there, marched into Riyadh, taken out this House of Saud, and essentially just said, this is our oil patch now, and we'll be running things. I'm sorry. I don't have any patience for anyone who would have been involved with that while still pretending that they are our friends. And to allow that to continue is just, well, it's abominable. According to Cal Thomas, America's most well-known syndicated columnist, that's because he's in more newspapers than anyone else. He just celebrated his 30th anniversary as a columnist last week. The New York Times, he said, reports Saudi Arabia, playing the role of mafia extortionist, has threatened to sell off hundreds of billions of dollars worth of American assets held by the kingdom if Congress passes a bill that would allow the Saudi government to be held responsible in American courts for its role in the September 11, 2001 attacks. Why do the Saudis oppose this bill, which enjoys bipartisan support? He says, could it be because, as many believe, they helped facilitate the greatest mass murder in American history? 15 of the 19 involved in that terrorist plot were Saudi citizens, and that country promotes the most extreme form of Islam known as Wahhabism. They built the big mosque outside of Washington in Virginia that was the mosque where many of these homegrown terrorists actually graduated from. This matter, he says, is easily resolved by releasing the 28 pages. Thomas says the relatives of the dead have a right to know who funded the attack that killed their loved ones. Justice demands it. And he says if compensation is awarded, the Saudis, who have made billions from oil sales, can afford it. For too long, he says, Republican and Democrat administrations have ignored the actions and the teachings of Saudi Arabia. 736-0300. 736-0300. We have a caller with us. You're up next. You're on the air with Bill Colley on KLIX.
Yeah, the other day I heard an authority on Muslim aggression, and he was talking about in Europe, Western Europe, that now this is what he said, that they're close to 10% of the population is Muslim. He says when a Muslim population gets to 25%, they literally will take over the entire governmental functions, Sharia law. Now, this is what this gentleman said. Now, I don't know how factual it is, but he says they will just force their way down the throats of everybody. And he says at this point, Western Europe is lost. And if we don't stop it, it will occur here in America. And these people that are so aloof and that just think that nothing can ever happen here in America, it just scares the hell out of me. And I'll hang up. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. And Western Europe, of course, doesn't care that it's lost. Western Europe has no moral center anymore, at least the traditional Western Europeans, the post-Christian world that they live in. In other words, church is no longer part of their lives. Uh, they worship big government, socialist government. And now someone is coming in and filling the void. 10 minutes away from 10 o'clock. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. Our president was born into the Muslim faith because, of course, his father was a practicing Muslim. And then our president lived as a practicing Muslim through his childhood years before he says he later converted to Christianity. Here he is being interviewed. I found this on the Fox News feed this morning. And he claims we cannot pursue enemies in Saudi Arabia. And if you lost loved ones, and many people did on 9/11, tough.
If we open up the possibility that individuals in the United States can routinely start suing other governments, then we are also opening up the United States to being continually sued by individuals in other countries. This is a matter of how generally the United States approaches our interactions with other countries.
No. If they did this, this was an act of war and it needs to be settled. This notion that, oh, well, then they can come sue us. I'm sorry. If you can show me that there were members of the Saudi royal family who were involved in the plotting of these attacks, then an act of war exists and has existed between our countries for 15 years, and we settle the dang score. And it wouldn't take long to take out their bases and just leave them, picked clean. I'm telling you, this demands justice. If anything demands justice in the Middle East. And I heard people say, well, Iraq was the wrong target in the last decade. Afghanistan certainly wasn't. But maybe Saudi Arabia should have been the place we started. We could have, once we cleaned out the den of vipers in Riyadh, we could have then just pivoted and gone north and taken care of the rest. And this notion you fight with one hand tied behind your back, I'm sorry, baloney. You go in there, you clean their clocks, it's done, it's over with. That's what those people respect. We have another caller with us. You're up next. You're on the air with Bill Colley on Top Story. Well, you almost were. Let's try line 2. Well, how do you know it's line 2? I could be lying. I could be like a politician. It could be 4 or 5. You're up next. You're on the air.
Well, I hope you're not like that, Bill. First, I want to start with my wife went out and bought a weed eater yesterday from one of their advertisers, and they treated her with the utmost respect. They probably gained a loyal customer.
Well, better than me dealing with Amazon. That's all I can say.
But, this whole thing with the Saudis, if this is absolutely true, why are we continually giving them money? We have enough oil to do our own. And if they want to have a declare of act of war, let's go get the oil. Let's go get them out, claim it, take it, and get them the heck out of there. And then we can use the money from that oil to pay the people that perished. It's just unbelievable to me. And the fact that you say that Obama claims that he's a Christian, show me the proof. In his 7 years of being in office, what has he done that's Christian-like?
Well, ask the Little Sisters of the Poor. I think that they would tell you that not much.
Well, he's done. I can't think of anything that he's done that's Christian-like. He's done everything Muslim-like. He's defended the Muslims. He's done everything for the Muslims. He's persecuted the Christians, and on and on. He says one thing, and in the Quran it tells you that you can lie to the infidels to get what you want. And he's heading towards that direction. So I always say, walk like a duck, talk like a duck, quack like a duck is a duck.
Thank you much for the input this morning. Look, the man's allies have gone around the country oppressing cake bakers and wedding photographers and pizza pie makers because they will not participate in same-sex wedding ceremonies. His Justice Department and his government has gone after organizations all over the country that refuse to provide abortion coverage because they treat it as an illness on the liberal side, abortion coverage to pregnant women in the healthcare policies that are issued. They're telling the Little Sisters of the Poor that they have to do the same thing. Meanwhile, they've been giving exemptions by the dozens to corporations, but they will not give them to religious organizations. And this man has tried to change because he knows a lot of Americans. If they read the Constitution, they were forced to do it in the 8th grade. They likely haven't done it since. He talks about your freedom of worship, when actually the word in the Constitution is religion and not worship. What he's trying to do is he's trying to rewrite through his own rhetoric the Constitution of the United States, telling you you can go to that little box on Sunday or Saturday, or even Friday if you're Muslim, and you can go in and you can worship as you please, but when you come out, you can't do it otherwise. That's the subtle difference. Freedom of religion means, on the other hand, there's a reason that we have missionaries in black slacks and white shirts and black ties walking all over this area. It's because they are commanded to do it. There's a reason that Jehovah's Witnesses go door to door. They are commanded by God to do it. You understand that? All Christians are. This is not something that they take lightly. But according to freedom of worship, you can't even do that because, well, I'm sorry, you might hurt somebody's feelings. You might show up at some atheist house, and if you suddenly mention your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, that flaming liberal, godless atheist may melt. And we can't have that. So what they're trying to simply do is rewrite that Constitution so they can better control you and eventually stamp out religious faith, so that the only place you'll have left to put any faith is in your government, just as they do in England, France, Germany, Italy, Scandinavian countries, and Spain, which used to be among the most Catholic countries in the world. You put your faith in government there, and eventually something else will come along and fill the void. As one of our previous callers suggested, that would be Islam. We have all the lessons we need, and we just stand back and we allow this to continue. There are so many reasons to go out and vote against this cartel, this Sanders-Clinton-Obama cartel come November. So many reasons, and yet this one might be the most important in the long run. 9:57, Bill Cawley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, newsradio1310.com. Before we wrap up the program today, a reminder, we expect Raul Labrador to join us. The representative will be on air with us most likely 8:15 tomorrow morning. Speaking of religious liberty, that's what we're talking about. He is the sponsor of a religious liberty bill that would do the same thing they're trying to do in places such as Mississippi, and what they almost were able to do in Georgia, and what they're trying to do in North Carolina and other various places around the country. This would do it on a federal level. In the meantime, after the congressman is done chatting with us, we'll have one of the medical professionals who'll be dropping by from Tripp Family Medicine right here in Twin Falls, office located on Fillmore Street directly across from the main post office. Keep in mind that they're here tomorrow to answer some of your medical questions. You don't necessarily have to call about the topic we're discussing, but they are here to offer that service to you. And also, we do remind you, they are still looking for new patients at Tripp Family Medicine. And if you're a patient and you need to see the doctor or one of the PAs or the nurse practitioner, generally you can get in within one day, sometimes the same day, to actually get some medical care. And remember, life's too short not to feel good. God willing, if the creek don't rise, they'll allow me to come back and do this all over again tomorrow morning between 8 and 10 o'clock. Rush Limbaugh following Fox News at 10 o'clock. Sean Hannity following Fox News at 1 o'clock. Glenn Beck following Fox News at 4 o'clock. And tonight, Dave Ramsey right here on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com.